Good morning. My name is John Prather, and I'm the Director of Business Development for Bridge Digital. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for our webinar on automated quality control for video. Whether you create or distribute video for broadcast or IP delivery, you must ensure that the final content meets any technical or legal specifications before going to air. In the past, QC was very much a manual process, but now with the explosion in delivery destinations, each with their own specific requirements, finding an automated solution for checking video is essential. Today, we have two of the leading automated QC software providers here to show us their solutions. So let's go over our agenda. First, Howard Twine, the Senior Sales Manager at VidCheck, will show us VidChecker, a second-generation automated QC product that provides thorough checks of the audio and video parameters of file-based media, and is even capable of intelligently correcting things like video luma, chroma, RGB component, and audio peak and loudness levels. Then Colin Blake, Senior Sales Engineer at Nexidia, will show us Nexidia QC, an automated quality control product that uses their patented dialogue search technology to check file-based media for closed caption and video description verification, caption alignment, and language identification. After that, we'll answer questions, but let me tell you a little bit about Bridge Digital. Bridge Digital is a US-based integrator and value-added reseller with expertise in digital video workflows and the technologies to make them work better. Our mission is to help creators and owners of digital content to create, manage, distribute, and monetize their video assets effectively. And clearly, QC is a big part of that. We represent over 100 different manufacturers in all types and tiers of storage, as well as video workflow products, including asset management systems, archiving systems, transcoding and file delivery software, as well as services used in the distribution and delivery of video content. We work with all types of customers, from traditional broadcasters to internet companies, production and post-production companies, networks, and video content distributors, event venues, and even other integrators and manufacturers working with customers in the media and entertainment space. Here's my contact information, and let me introduce Howard Twine, Senior Sales Manager of VidCheck.
Thank you very much, John. So just before I dive into the sort of product demo here, just to kind of set the scene in terms of where VidCheck as a company have come from. VidCheck's been in business now for about 5 years, and over the last 12 to 18 months or so, we've seen quite a tremendous increase in sales. We've more than doubled our revenue, and obviously to reciprocate that, we've more than doubled our headcount as well. So as a young growing company, we're definitely putting ourselves on the map. VidCheck as a company, is relatively young, as I said, but the expertise that underpin our products actually come from a more widely recognized organization. In fact, the development team that created VidChecker, our core product, actually developed the Tektronix Serify. And in fact, the entire team, the core team within VidCheck, have all come from the Tektronix kind of background. So what I'm going to walk you through here is VidChecker, our mainstay product. It's essentially a software application that runs as a service, and this is the service that runs in the background. It can be installed on a workstation. In this particular case, I'm actually running it off my laptop, but it can be installed on a workstation, or it can be installed on a server. In that respect, from the sort of server application, installing this as a service means that multiple users can access VidChecker, and content can be accessed via the VidChecker service from any kind of storage location, whether it be Avid ISIS storage, just a regular NAS, or a SAN. VidChecker is storage independent in that respect. one of the key features with VidChecker is that you're not reliant on having to move content to that platform that's hosting the service. All it needs to do is read from that content. So providing you've got decent network bandwidth, VidChecker can read from the file and perform its analysis. The service doesn't really get particularly interesting when VidChecker is actually processing stuff. This sort of DOS type interface you can see here is about as interesting as it gets. The real key to VidChecker is the intuitive web-based user interface. Being web-based, of course, it means you can run it on pretty much any platform, and also means that multiple users can access VidChecker on that server, providing, of course, they've got the appropriate network permissions, and this can also be managed by general network admin kind of features. In terms of the user interface, it's sort of divided into fairly easy to view tabs. We've got here a task monitor, various setup tabs and things like that I'll touch on as we go through the demo. One of the key features of VidChecker is that something that we as a company take very seriously is that because what VidChecker is doing is actually quite complex, doesn't mean to say that you have to have a complex user interface in order for people to understand what they're doing and how they're processing their content, and most importantly, of course, the results of any QC process that's been carried out. And you can see here from the task monitor the results of some of these tests. I can see the name of the file, I get a little thumbnail of the file, I can see the size and the template, which has been named to give some representation of the tests that have actually been carried out. In this particular case, we've been actually doing a loudness test. You get things like whether the job was started manually, whether it was managed via a watch folder, or in the case of certain applications, if it was a Telestream Vantage or something like that has started off the process, that would also be reflected in the user interface. Obviously, you've got date stamps for started and completion, and then we're on to the real nitty-gritty. What was found, what was identified, and you get a very abbreviated list here or text here to show you what was identified as part of this process. And one of the unique features of VidChecker is it actually has the ability to correct both video and audio content, and you get a check mark here to say that correction process was successful. So let me drill down into that particular file that's been processed and look at the QC report itself. QC report shows me at the top the name of the file and a shortcut to the file that was under test. I get a shortcut to the template, and I also over here get a shortcut to the corrected file. As I mentioned just now, one of the unique features of VidChecker is that it has the ability to correct files as well as fix them for certain parameters. In the case of correction, VidChecker creates a whole new file that's been corrected in the same format as the input file. We don't modify the original file under test, obviously. So looking at the detailed input file information here, we can see the codec wrapper and audio layout of this particular file under test. And then beneath that, we get a breakdown of each of the individual errors in more detail. One of the key things with VidChecker, and this is something that's very dear to the company's heart, to the very ethos within VidCheck, is that it's well and good telling people that you've got a problem, but actually people want to be told where the problem exists, what the problem is, where it is, and quantifying it. And as you can see in the QC report here, we've got identification to say that there's individual audio peak levels being detected. We can see that it's in a particular audio stream, and we can also see here by how much the problem exists. So in this particular case, we've got a problem in channel 1 of minus 0.7 dB. And beneath that, we've got another audio error at minus 1.6 dB in channel 2. So what does that actually look like or sound like? Well, if the operator clicks the thumbnail, it opens up a player, and you can actually see, or in this particular case here, the actual peak audio level and play through at that particular point. This is playing the original input file. Obviously, we're not looking at any proxies that have been created here that would defeat the object. So one of the problems that people face when investing in a QC product, an automatic quality control product, is you've bought the software, you've installed it, you've put it on a server, you know how you're going to deploy it into your workflow, but what parameters are you going to test, and how do you create that template to give you a baseline? One of the key features with VidChecker is we have the ability to automatically create a template based on a known good working file. To that end, I can choose from my list of templates a template called file info. I can browse to a known good working file, and this file could be a file that I've delivered to a network or something like that, and the feedback that I've had from the recipient of that file is that it's good, and actually what they really want is every other file that I deliver to them to comply to the same layout, to the same standard. So actually, in that respect, your QC tool is vital in providing you with that consistency. So let's say that I browse to that known good working file, click Start Task, start a manual task, go to my task monitor, and that's completed now. If I click on the results for that particular file, we can see that I've got the structural metadata of the file. In this particular case, it's an H.264 MPEG-4 file with AAC audio, but we haven't got a full QC report below that. That's because the file info is really more interested in the structure and the makeup of the file. But what I have got down here is an auto template button. And if I give the file a name, click on OK, now go to my list of templates and scroll down, click on the link to that template, and now what it's done is it's created a template based on the makeup of that MPEG-4 H.264 file. In this particular case, the file had a custom frame size, so it's actually populated the values in the frame size parameter there. It's extracted the pixel aspect ratio, the frame aspect ratio, the frame rate, and if I go to the video checks, we make the sweeping assumption that people want to deliver video of a good quality and of legal values. So we've actually automatically populated things like the chroma, black rebel, and RGB gamut parameters. If I go to the audio checks, the audio layout in the template has been defined by that file, the number of channels. And if I scroll down, I've got the ability here to perform R128 integrated loudness checks as well. I've also got the ability to choose other parameters. I can choose peak level, short time, and momentary loudness for this template as well. And if I just go back to my video checks, you'll see here that we have two rows of checkboxes. The reject on error gives you the flexibility to define the outcome of a test. If you click the reject on error and your video actually has illegal chroma, black rebel, or RGB gamut, then you create a failed condition. Obviously, if it's in spec, then it'll pass. But without that reject on error checkbox enabled, VidChecker can generate warnings. So you've got the flexibility to define whether or not you get additional information in the shape of warnings within your QC report or not. And then, of course, you've got the ability to correct errors. Typical parameters for correction are chroma, black level, RGB gamma. We've also got the ability to correct for analog dropouts. These would be like some head clog type artifacts in the video. The audio parameters that we can correct are for peak level, integrated loudness, the R128, short-term and momentary loudness as well. The algorithms that we apply are sort of intelligent gain control parameters. It's not just clipping or clamping, because obviously if you just clip, you lose detail in the video and you lose clarity in the audio. We actually preserve the waveform values above the threshold that's been defined within the template, and intelligently adjust that gain only for the values that are above the stipulated threshold. Obviously, because for integrated loudness, if you were to drop the gain overall and you've got a momentary hit, then your problem is still there. It's just that all the other levels are reduced. So, having set all of those parameters within my template, I can then assign a template to a watch folder. You can have any number of watch folders within VidChecker, and you can assign different templates to different watch folders. In fact, one of the things that people quite often do is they'll have different templates for different levels of checking. In the first instance, you may have an input watch folder that is purely looking for HD or SD content based on perhaps the frame aspect ratio or the frame size. VidChecker has the ability to move content based on whether or not it passes or fails. So in that respect, what you can actually do is you can use VidChecker to sort content out based on whether it's, say, HD or SD, for example, and then the output folder can then be an input folder, watch folder, for another more thorough test based on parameters that have been defined in another template. And based on that, you can actually build up some fairly complex workflows that will provide you with quite a lot of information about the content. If we just go back to our task monitor and look at another QC report, in this particular case we've been looking for cadence errors, and we've also got RGB chroma and RGB gamut and chroma level issues in this particular clip. One of the things that a lot of people need to be able to do is, of course, take this information and import that into another third-party system, potentially. You can produce QC reports in either PDF form or in XML form. In each case, the QC report is fully customizable. You can choose the colors, the layout, and even embed your own company logo into a QC report if necessary. All of the features that I've shown you here in the user interface are available via our API. And the API, of course, provides integration into numerous media asset management solutions and workflow engine solutions, platforms like Telestream Vantage, for example. So that gives you a flavor of VidChecker. You have an entry-level version of VidChecker, VidChecker Post, which has exactly the same feature set. The only difference is that VidChecker that I've been showing you here has the capability to process 4 files at a time. VidChecker Post, the entry-level solution, just processes 1 file at a time. There's an upgrade path from VidChecker Post to VidChecker. You can also connect multiple VidChecker instances together into creating a sort of a QC farm, much like a render farm, that we call a VidChecker grid. So there you go. There's an overview of VidChecker. Hopefully that's been of use to you. And it's back to you, John.
Great. Thank you very much, Howard. Now let's take a look at Nexidia QC with Colin Blake. He is a senior sales engineer for Nexidia.
Thank you. Yeah, so Nexidia QC is a file-based tool for QC and compliance of closed captioned languages and video descriptions. Nexidia itself came out of a Georgia Tech research project that was the company was started back in 2000. That project basically was tasked with making the archives of Senator Sam Nunn searchable, and the technologies available at that time didn't do a very good job and took a very long time to process. And so the company was, or the project looked at ways to improve that, and they kind of came up with a phonetic-based approach for searching audio. And we've then applied that technology to a number of different business units, media and entertainment being one, and Nexidia QC is the second main product that we've been selling directly to customers. We had prior to that been primarily a licensing company. So the core technology is used for the search of spoken word content, and we're using this currently in contact centers, media applications like this one here, and also in the government and legal space. All of the technology is our own. There have been 18 patents issued, and there are a good number of pending patents as well. So I think we've got a very unique technology. Here are a list of current Nexidia customers. And in the media space, here's just a list of some of the folks that use our technology. We've also won a good number of awards for this technology. And as I mentioned, Nexidia QC is a automated file-based QC tool for checking closed captions, language verification, so detecting which language is being spoken on which audio tracks, and for audio-video description verification. This is descriptions for visually impaired viewers. We also, in one of our most recent releases, have added the ability to do automated caption alignment. And so this would take captions that have delay due to frame rate conversion or live captioning delay, and we can actually retime those captions in order to make them play in sync with the audio. And so this is a great tool for repurposing content for the web and things of that nature. All right, so this is the Nexidia QC web interface. QC itself gets installed on Windows Server. We run on top of IIS, and then we provide this web interface for you. But everything that you can do through this web interface is also available through our REST API. That REST API is bundled with the product, so it's available to all customers. That allows you to integrate it into your own workflow automation tools, and we also have existing integrations with several workflow vendors. So we'll dive into a profile that I've already started creating and take a look at what that looks like. So the idea with Nexidia QC is that you would generate a number of profiles that define all of the test criteria for a given type of media that you'll be testing. You'd create a few of those profiles, and then you submit jobs against those profiles. So this one here I've configured with several closed captioning related tests. I'll go ahead and bring in the remaining test here for closed captions, and also bring in our caption alignment action to run if any of those tests fails. I'll go through the parameters here to kind of give you an idea of what the capabilities of each of the tests are. So you can see for incorrect captions here, we can specify which audio track we're interested in testing, the format of the closed captions. We'll be using SRT, but we also have support for SCC, SMPTE, SAMI, Cheetah.cap, iTunes time text, EBU-STL, EBU time text, and again SRT. We allow you to specify the time base of the captions. We can also get that from the caption file if it's specified there. And you can specify the initial time code that the captions were authored at. Commonly, this would be 0 or 1 hours. We also have the ability to automatically detect that if you would like us to. So those first 4 parameters are the same for all of our tests. The last parameter here for our incorrect captions test is the number of seconds per hour that you would tolerate for incorrect captions. And so this is basically listening to the audio, comparing it to the captions, and looking for cases where the text of the captions doesn't match what's actually being spoken. And there's a little bit of leeway there that allows for some paraphrasing and whatnot. But in general, we're looking for that kind of problem, and we'll flag that as incorrect. Missing captions is very similar. The only difference here is that we're looking for cases where somebody is speaking, but there are no associated captions. And we try to do both the missing and incorrect captions tests independent of the synchronization. We look specifically at synchronization in these last two tests here. And so we have an out-of-sync caption shift test. This test is looking for captions that appear too early or too late, as compared to the audio or the dialogue in the audio. And we allow you then to define what is too early and too late. So right here we've got it defined 5 seconds before or 5 seconds after. You can tune those parameters independently, so you might say allow captions to appear, you never want them to appear early, but you might allow them to be up to 2 seconds late, something along those lines. But that's up to the user and may differ depending upon the type of content that you're using and what your expectations for it are. And again, you've got a parameter here in seconds per hour of how much of the media you would allow to exceed those thresholds. So as I have it configured here, if we were to find a single caption block anywhere in the media that was out of sync by more than 5 seconds, we would fail this file. Lastly, we've got the out-of-sync captions drift test. I'll set the parameters on here that need to be set for running the test that we'll be doing in just a second. But the out-of-sync captions drift test is looking specifically for media that is that exhibits a drift, where the captions might be in sync at the beginning, but as the media progresses, they grow further and further out of sync. Typically, this would occur if there is a frame rate conversion problem with the captions or something of that nature. It could also be drop frame versus non-drop frame time codes. So we'll indicate that specifically to the user, and that could be a good clue as to what the source of the problem with that timing is. And then we have our caption alignment action. As I mentioned earlier, the caption alignment action allows you to basically allows us to actually take a caption file that may be misaligned, where the captions aren't in sync with the audio, and we take our analysis one step further. Instead of just alerting you to areas where the captions are out of sync, we would actually then create a copy of the caption file, re-timestamp each of the caption blocks, and then output that new caption file. And so then when it's played back with the media, the captions would actually be in sync with the audio. So again, let me configure these parameters here very quickly, and then we'll get to actually running the test and taking a look at the results. So now that that's been created, we have the ability to submit a job using the Create Job interface or button there. And the Create Job, basically we're specifying which profile we want to use, and then the path to the media and the path to the captions. And this web interface is really intended for one-off submission. It's very helpful for for evaluations and just doing testing in low volumes when necessary. In a production environment, I imagine most customers will want to use either the API or one of the integrations with one of the workflow tools that we operate with in order to submit jobs. Definitely makes it a lot easier in volume. So we've provided each of those paths. We'll hit the Create Job button here, and that will actually submit the job. We'll see the progress bar indicating our progress, and in just a few seconds here, this should finish processing and give us our results. The base tier for Nexidia QC runs at 5 times real time, and so an hour-long file would process in approximately 12 minutes, and that's largely independent of the number of tests that you're running. All right, so this is what the job results page looks like. We can see that this test failed, or this job failed, and that's because one of the component tests failed. In this case, it was actually two. Both of the out-of-sync captions tests failed. There's a little bit of summary information about each of those. And then as we scroll down, we can see detailed information for each of the tests. And so, for example, with missing captions here, we can see that there's a segment on the timeline in red indicating an area where we found some missing captions. There's also a list view for that available. And then coming down a little bit further, we can see that both of the caption synchronization tests failed. Here we found a large block of captions that have been shifted. A little bit further down, we can see that the captions drift test actually failed. We're indicating the number of seconds that we detected, or basically the amount of drift that we detected in the file. And all the way down at the bottom here, we've got the caption alignment action, which did run because one of our tests failed. And we've got a link here to download a new caption file. So again, that's a copy of the original, and we've modified the timestamps to bring them in sync. You also have the ability to save this as an HTML report. You can download the XML. The XML that you would download is actually the same that you would get as through the API. And then new in our 2.3 release here, we have a new review player. So if we click on review there, we can actually see, we bring up the video, you can see the captions along the right side here, and then we've got our timeline so we can navigate directly to spots where we found a problem. So I'll go ahead and play a little bit of the original captions in the area where we're indicating that there's a synchronization problem, and you should be able to hear that here.
You're not paying attention. I just want to answer the phone.
So you can hear that it's pretty far out of sync there, but then we can flip over to the aligned captions here, and I'll play a little bit more, and you can see that we've actually brought it in sync with the audio.
Emo, look, I mean, listen. You have to learn to listen.
So that's basically how caption alignment works, and again, that's really helpful for retiming of live captions or frame rate conversion problems that may have led the captions to grow further and further out of sync. So that, in a nutshell, is the capabilities of Nexidia QC.
Thanks, Colin. Nexidia clearly has a unique and valuable QC system, especially with the various regulations around captioning. So that's the two products we wanted to show you today. We planned on having a Q&A session now to go over any questions you might have, but due to prior time commitments, we have to end our presentation here. What I would like to do is invite you to reach out to me at the contact information shown here, and we can set up a call to answer any questions directly or to provide a custom demonstration around the issues most important to you. You can call me at 615-324-3628 or email me at john.prather@bridgedigitalinc.com, and I'll set up what you need to determine if either of these products are a good fit for you. Thank you for your time and attention, and have a great day.